My name is Cassidy Monroe, and at 33, I learned the hard way that trust isn't something you inherit, it's something you audit. Just 6 weeks ago, I sold my cybersecurity company for $24 million, life-changing money. The kind of deal that flips your whole world on its axis. And like a fool, I thought the people who raised me would be the ones to celebrate with me. Instead, I gave my mother and younger brother a front-row seat to my success, and they turned it into a heist. It still makes me sick to say this out loud, but here it is. I left $11 million in cash overnight in my mom's home for safekeeping, and by sunrise, she and my brother were gone. No note, no warning. Just a phone lock screen changed to a selfie of them toasting champagne and the message, "Don't worry, Cass. We'll put your money to good use." If that sounds like the plot of a low-budget crime drama, you're right. But I lived it. And if you think that's the worst of it, stick around. This story only gets wilder. Let me take you back to where it began. I grew up in a 3-room rental on the south side of Milwaukee. The ceilings leaked, the heat barely worked, and my mother, Teresa, was a chain-smoking bartender who always said she was one tip away from a better life. My brother Julian was 5 years younger than me, always sick as a kid, always spoiled as a result. My mother treated motherhood like a job she was never quite qualified for, but refused to quit. She didn't hit us, unless you count backhands with a ringed hand, but she wielded guilt like a samurai blade. Everything she did was a sacrifice, and we were never allowed to forget it. Christmases were humble, birthdays were an afterthought. The first time I had a real cake, I was 14, and it was stolen from a neighbor's birthday party. But I was a smart kid, obsessively so. While other kids were sneaking out to parties, I was teaching myself Python from a cracked laptop in the school library. My teachers said I was intense. One even told my mom I needed therapy. She laughed and said, "Therapy is for kids with time." Cassidy doesn't have that luxury. By the time I graduated high school, I'd already built a freelance coding business that kept the lights on at home. I didn't just study my way out, I hacked my way out. A full ride to Stanford followed, then a master's in information security, then a job at GridVault, a mid-sized firm with dreams of going public. I learned a lot there, mostly how men twice my age would smile at my credentials while stealing my work behind closed doors. So I left, launched my own company at 27, just me, a basement office, and a decade of unprocessed trauma turned into ambition. The company RedlineSec grew fast, too fast. Within 2 years, we were protecting data for banks and venture firms. At year 5, we were fielding acquisition offers from hedge-backed giants. I played it cool until the right number came. $24 million, half in equity, half in cash. The equity I kept with my lawyers. The cash, that's where the story gets dark. The night before the deal closed, I needed a secure place to store the funds until transfer logistics were complete. My first instinct was a private vault downtown, but some ghost of childhood neediness pushed me toward a different option. I called my mom. "Hey, Ma, I'm coming over tomorrow. Got something I need to stash for a night." She sounded groggy, like I'd woken her up mid-cigarette. "Is it illegal?" "No." "Then bring it." Her voice had that dry, sarcastic edge she always used when masking curiosity. I ignored it. Julian was there when I arrived the next afternoon. He'd bounced around gig jobs for years, Uber crypto mining, even selling knockoff sneakers. Never once held a steady job longer than 6 months. But he greeted me like a long-lost investor. "Damn, sis, you moving bricks," he joked as I unloaded the black duffel bags. Something like that. I had already prepped the money at the bank, packed in tamper-proof satchels cereals, recorded a mix of high-denomination bills. I knew what I was doing. I thought. The house hadn't changed much. Same green shag carpet from the 90s. Same cloying smell of menthol and onion rings. I had installed the wall safe 2 years ago when I helped Mom refinance her mortgage. She'd wanted it for her collectibles cheap porcelain frogs she bought from eBay. "You still got the combo?" I asked. "Of course," she said, rolling her eyes. "What do you think, I'm senile?" Julian just watched, silent, sharp, too sharp. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was the first red flag. They both offered me dinner. I declined. Said I was tired, had meetings early next day. Truth was, I wanted out of that house, badly. Something felt off, but I couldn't name it. I stayed at a nearby hotel that night. Had one bourbon, double-locked the door, and crashed. At 8 a.m. sharp, I called my mom. No answer. Called Julian. Straight to voicemail. Panic didn't hit me until I pulled up to the house at 8:45. The front door was wide open. The living room clean, too clean. Like it had been staged for a realtor showing. The safe empty, cleaned out with surgical precision. But it was the note on the fridge that made me drop my keys. Cass, thanks for the startup capital. We'll be in touch once we've found ourselves. Don't follow, love always T&J. T&J, like a goddamn reality show title. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, the fridge humming softly in the silence, my hands ice cold. And that was the moment I understood what betrayal really feels like. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It leaves quietly through the back door with everything you thought you could trust. I sat on the cracked linoleum floor of my mother's kitchen for what felt like hours. The fridge door still open behind me, humming like it had a secret. The silence was so thick, I could hear my pulse in my ears. They were gone. Vanished like magicians. No car in the driveway, no sign of struggle. Just me $11 million short and a note that read like a punchline. At first, I did what anyone in my position would do. I called them. Over and over and over. Mom's phone went straight to voicemail. Julian's rang twice, then cut off like it had been thrown into a lake. I even texted them both, a sad attempt at optimism. Tell me this is a joke. You have 1 hour to call me back before I call the cops. No reply. I called Detective Kira Maddox at the Milwaukee PD because she'd once handled a break-in at our office and had given me her card with a wink. This wasn't her department, but she pulled some strings and got a unit dispatched. 2 uniformed officers arrived an hour later. One young and stiff, the other older and clearly exhausted. They listened, took notes, asked questions I didn't want to answer. Yes, I put the money in my mother's safe voluntarily. No, we didn't sign anything formal. She's my mom. Yes, I have withdrawal documentation from the bank. No, I didn't have security cameras inside the house. The older cop, Officer Randall, scratched his chin. Ma'am, legally this is murky. Family disputes involving money, especially when there's no forced entry, can look a lot like gifting gone wrong. It wasn't a gift I snapped. It was a 24-hour deposit. For a real estate deal. I told her that. He sighed. We'll file a report, but don't expect miracles. By that evening, the adrenaline had faded, and something worse had taken its place, shame. How could I have been this naive? I didn't even tell my boyfriend Leo right away. He was in Atlanta on a site visit for his architecture firm, and I didn't want to hear the concern in his voice turn into judgment. We'd only been together 9 months, and things were finally good. At 3 a.m., I finally cracked and called him. They took it, I whispered. He was groggy but present. Took what who? My mom, Julian. They took the money, all of it. Silence. Cass? You mean your mom and Julian? I left the cash with her overnight, and now they're gone. Jesus, are you okay? No, I said, sobbing. I don't think I've ever been less okay. He wanted to fly back immediately, but I told him not to. There was nothing he could do. Besides, part of me didn't want to see the look in his eyes when I said it all out loud again. The next morning, I met with my lawyer, Patricia Lang. She was sharp, no nonsense, and wore $900 shoes that clicked like a metronome of authority. I told her everything. This is bad, she said, not even pretending otherwise, but not unfixable. She laid out the steps. File a civil claim for conversion and fraud. Notify the FBI if the money crossed state lines. Potentially open a criminal investigation if we could prove malicious intent. But here's the problem, she added, leaning in. Family. Juries don't like convicting moms and brothers. They'll see you as the cold, rich tech girl who locked up her sickly little brother and aging mother. She's 56 and healthy. He's a con artist. Doesn't matter, she replied. Perception trumps facts in court. We'll need proof, motive, a paper trail. Over the next week, I turned into a woman possessed. I scoured every trace of Julian's online presence. Deleted social media check. Crypto wallets with activity spikes days before the heist check. An old friend of his, Sam Dorsey, posted an Instagram story from a rooftop in Buenos Aires that looked suspiciously like the one Julian had on his Pinterest dream board. Meanwhile, my mom's bank accounts, joint accounts I used to help her manage, had been drained. Transfers to offshore accounts, payments to flight charter services. A transfer to something called Lupin Global Holdings, which turned out to be a shell company registered in Panama. I compiled everything into a growing dossier I labeled Project Lazarus, because if I was going to resurrect my dignity, I needed to treat this like war. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about the rot. Because once I started pulling threads, the whole damn sweater unraveled. Julian had forged my signature 6 months earlier to open a line of credit using my name. My mother had been listed as a secondary signer. She'd known, she'd approved it. And they weren't struggling, not even close. Mom had secretly sold the second property I bought her during the pandemic, an Airbnb rental I assumed was vacant. She never mentioned it. The $300K profit. Gone. Poured into a startup Julian launched called Skyvibe, an app that promised a new frontier in spiritual gig economies. It had tanked in 4 months. I stared at the screen as the timeline formed in front of me. This wasn't spontaneous. It had been orchestrated, slow, patient, like termites behind drywall. They never loved me. Not really. They loved what I could give them, until I stopped. The real gut punch came on a Thursday evening when I broke into my mother's old iCloud account. I'd set it up years ago, and the password hadn't changed. Inside were photos, screenshots, emails between her and Julian titled Exit Strategy, drafts of messages they never sent. Even a checklist: find country with no extradition, delete burner phones, delay Cassidy until Sunday. My name written in bullet points like I was a problem to be solved. That's when I stopped crying. That's when the rage turned cold. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclamation. I wasn't going to chase them across the world like a heartbroken heiress. I was going to dismantle every dollar they touched, every fake document they used, every person who helped them disappear. Brick by brick, I would make sure their freedom became the most expensive thing they'd ever bought. And when they finally looked back, they'd see me standing there, not broken, but waiting. 3 weeks after the theft, I still hadn't told anyone the full truth, not even Leo. Not about the emails I found in Mom's iCloud. Not about the encrypted messages Julian sent to someone named Vico on Telegram. Not about the list they titled Cassidy's Weak Spots, which read like an obituary for my trust. Still craves approval. Will overcompensate when guilted. Can be baited with family emergency. They knew me too well, so I decided to become someone else. Not the Cassidy who sent $2,000 a month to cover Julian's rent. Not the daughter who bought her mom a greenhouse just because she once mentioned she liked orchids. I would become the woman they feared I'd grow into, cold calculating and absolutely unrelenting. First, I hired someone who scared me a little. Her name was Zaira Leon. She used to run digital risk for a private military contractor before going solo. Think hacker meets bounty hunter with a law degree and no patience for sentimentality. You want them buried or bankrupt? She asked over encrypted voice chat the night we signed our agreement. Both, I said, but in that order. She laughed. I like you already. While Zaira began digging into international financial records, I started hitting Julian's known contacts. Carefully, quietly. His ex-girlfriend Mika owed me nothing, but when I sent her a $1,000 DoorDash gift card and asked for 15 minutes of her time, she talked. Julian had been planning something big for months, mentioned going dark. He bragged about a stash of prepaid Visa cards and a friend who could scrub identities like dishes. He said he'd come back for me once he was reborn. Mika said, rolling her eyes. Told me not to wait, so I didn't. I got an IP address from an old iMessage backup. One that pinged from Lima, Peru, 2 weeks after the heist. Zaira traced it to a luxury condo. Paid in full, in Bitcoin. Meanwhile, my lawyer Patricia filed emergency asset seizure orders in 3 countries just in case we got lucky. We didn't, not yet. Julian and Mom were careful, frustratingly so. But the thing about people who've never earned anything, they don't know how to sit still. They spend, they post, they brag. And that's how we found the crack. An Instagram story from a wannabe influencer in Cartagena featured a blurry background that, when enhanced, showed Julian wearing a Panama hat. Same one he wore in a family photo from 2016. His mistake. He tagged the location, La Maria Boutique Hotel. Within hours, Zaira had tapped into the hotel's guest registry. They'd checked in under new names, Marco and Elena Rivas, but used their real birthdays. Rookie move. By the time we had the confirmation, I wasn't shocked. I was focused. I forwarded the guest list to an associate I knew at the U.S. consulate in Bogota, someone I'd once helped when their daughter's social media got hacked. Favor repaid. Within 24 hours, the consulate confirmed Julian and Mom had flown to Zurich on fake passports. I sat in the dark that night, wine untouched, staring at the map Zaira had printed out on a corkboard in her office. Red pins tracked their trail like a modern Hansel and Gretel, except this wasn't breadcrumbs. It was burnt bridges. I still hadn't told Leo where I'd been spending my nights. He thought I was deep in client work, rebuilding my business after the sale. I let him believe it. Every time he asked if I was okay, I said yes. What else could I say? I'm hunting my family like fugitives. That doesn't go over well on a dinner date. But the pressure was taking its toll. I started forgetting to eat, waking up in cold sweats, checking Julian's burner profiles every hour like they were stock tickers. Worse, Leo started pulling away. I feel like I'm dating a locked room, he said one night as I came home after midnight. You don't want to be in this room, I said, brushing past him. He didn't ask again. The final thread came from an unexpected source, my former CTO, Maya. We hadn't spoken in a year, not since she left RedlineSec, over what she called philosophical differences. Read I worked too much, trusted too little. But when she found out about the heist, she emailed me. Saw the news? If you're planning something big, I want in. I called her immediately. How much do you know? I asked. Enough, she replied. I built the tracking software Julian used on his old crypto wallet. And you forgot I still had admin access to your cloud drive. That was true. She'd seen the screenshots, the emails, the plans. And unlike me, Maya wasn't conflicted. They chose this, she said. Let's end it. With her help, we devised what we called Project Matador, a trap masquerading as bait. I wired 50,000 into a dummy account connected to an encrypted messaging app we knew Julian monitored. The message was simple. Cassidy knows, but she hasn't moved yet. She's still grieving. You can still clean it up. Zaira pinged me 48 hours later. They bit. Julian used the dummy login from a secure location in the Alps. My mother's name showed up next, rerouting a second transaction request through a VPN based in Liechtenstein. It was beautiful, predictable, and completely traceable. But the real twist, they weren't alone. We intercepted a message from Julian's account forwarded to a third party named Ziggy61. It read, "The product is still intact. Buyer confirmed for end of month. We can vanish after that." Product. Buyer. That's when it hit me like a sucker punch to the ribs. They weren't just spending my money. They were trying to sell something. But what? That's when Maya looked at me and said flatly, "Cass, they cloned your data vault." And just like that, the game changed. They cloned your data vault. Maya's voice was calm, too calm for what she'd just said. The vault, I echoed barely above a whisper. You mean your RedlineSec prototype? The zero-knowledge encryption algorithm you were building before the acquisition. It's not finished, but it's dangerous in the wrong hands. I felt the blood drain from my face. That algorithm wasn't just my legacy, it was a weapon. If deployed unethically, it could erase digital footprints across financial systems. Banks, governments, health records, anything encrypted, the very tool I built to protect people, could be used to erase them. I stood up too fast and nearly knocked over my chair. Why the hell would Julian have access to it? Maya looked guilty. Because we used to work on it remotely. Remember when your mom's house lost power during that blizzard? You had me send a backup to her Wi-Fi so you could continue testing from there. I did remember. I'd logged in on her old laptop. It was supposed to be temporary. He must have found it, copied it, packaged it like a tech demo for black market buyers. My mom, the woman who once threw a toaster across the room because she thought the bank overdrafted her card by $6.50s, had decided her daughter's most valuable intellectual property was a quick way to secure a buyer and disappear. They're not just thieves anymore, I said, my voice tightening. They're data traffickers. Maya nodded grimly. And we're going to shut them down. The next 2 weeks were a blur. We moved our base to Zurich, technically neutral, but crawling with the kind of international operatives that could make or break an operation like this. Zaira knew people. One of them was Victor Hollenbach, a former Interpol tech liaison who now ran digital intelligence for hire. For the right price, he could make a Swiss vault blink. We gave him the data IP, traces crypto wallet IDs, offshore account chains, and Julian's transaction logs. He examined everything, then gave a single nod. They're planning a handoff. The buyer is a front for a Belarusian firm that's been banned in 14 countries. They'll use a yacht transfer offshore in international waters. Clean, quiet, untraceable. Not this time. We didn't go to the police, not yet. The location of the transfer was legal gray area. And if we intervened without undeniable proof, they could claim we fabricated everything. We needed them caught red-handed, so we gave them a reason to drop their guard. We leaked a fake article to a cybersecurity forum written by a respected but anonymous researcher claiming Redline Sec's old encryption model had critical flaws and was being pulled by its new parent company. Julian's burner email predictably reached out to confirm. Maya responded under a decoy account. Heard the same. Values dropping fast. Hope you offloaded already. The trap was set. Meanwhile, Leo was starting to notice something was off. "You're never home," he said one night during a stilted video call. "You won't tell me where you are. Are you even safe?" "I can't explain yet," I told him. "But soon, I promise." He didn't push. But I saw it in his eyes, the slow pulling away. The wariness, the hurt. I hated it. But I hated the thought of letting my mother and brother win even more. Zaira and Victor tracked the buyer's travel logs. The handoff was scheduled for a private yacht called the Soraya, docked just beyond territorial limits near the Ligurian coast. We needed to board it, quietly, legally. That's where Zaira pulled her final ace. She contacted someone named Luca, an Italian maritime lawyer, who once helped Interpol reclaim stolen artifacts from a Saudi diplomat's yacht. For a $30,000 retainer, Luca made a miracle happen, a surprise inspection order under EU maritime safety codes, citing potential unregistered signal transmissions, translation and excuse to board the boat and seize digital devices. On the day of the operation, I watched the Soraya from a surveillance boat anchored nearby. Maya monitored devices. Zaira coordinated the boarding. Luca supervised the legal paperwork. I wore all black hair, pinned earpiece, crackling with live comms. Then came Zaira's voice. "We're in." Julian and my mother were aboard. Laughing, drinking champagne. Julian wore white linen and loafers. Mom was in a leopard print caftan sunglasses, too big for her face. When authorities stormed the lower deck, they found 3 encrypted drives. And on those drives, my prototype. The real one. Not even a modified version. They hadn't even bothered to tweak it. Julian panicked, tried to throw one of the drives overboard. Zaira stopped him. "You throw that," she said calmly, "and we'll let you swim to Tunisia." He froze. My mother tried denial. "These are souvenirs," she said, holding up a drive. "My daughter's legacy. We just wanted to preserve it." I stepped onto the deck then. "Hi, Mom," I said. "Preserve it for who?" She blinked. "Cassidy." But I walked past her straight to the inspector holding the drives. "Check the metadata," I said. "Look at the encryption structure. It's mine. I built it. And they stole it." 3 hours later, Julian and my mother were detained under suspicion of intellectual property theft, cyber trafficking, and attempted digital sabotage. The buyer fled the country. Interpol opened a formal investigation. The drives were seized. The clone was neutralized. My mother didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just looked at me across the steel table in the temporary holding room and said, "You think this makes you better?" "No," I said. "I think this makes me free." She didn't speak after that. Julian asked for a deal. He wanted to name names. We let him talk, then turned the whole confession over to our lawyers. By the time I flew back to the States, the case had gone international. News outlets called it the Quiet Vault Sting. Commentators wondered how I had tracked them down without law enforcement's help. I didn't answer. Some things are more powerful when left unsaid. I didn't sleep the first night back in Milwaukee. The adrenaline had drained from my body, but my mind was electric, looping through every detail. The boat. The moment I saw my prototype tucked inside a cheap metal casing. The way Julian's voice cracked when he realized it was over. But the quiet in my apartment was worse than any confrontation. The walls felt too still. The shadows too long. Leo wasn't there. I hadn't told him I was back. I didn't know how. He'd stopped reaching out a week ago after my third deflection, after I bailed on our anniversary dinner with a half-assed excuse about client emergencies. I wanted to call him, but what would I even say? "Hey, remember how my mom and brother stole millions and tried to sell the algorithm I built over 10 years? Oh, and I chased them across 3 continents with a hacker and a retired Interpol agent. Miss you, by the way." No. Some silences feel final. Instead, I paced the apartment, then did what I always did when I couldn't cope. I worked. I reopened RedlineSec's old dev environment. Not to code, just to see it. The familiar black terminal. The blinking cursor. My name buried in every line of encrypted architecture. For a while I sat there just breathing. I had won. Legally, logistically, even publicly. But emotionally, I felt like I had been hollowed out and stitched back together with thread too thin to hold. The media caught on fast. Billionaire betrayal, cyber heiress tracks. Her own family across borders. Tech prodigy lays trap for mother and brother finds stolen algorithm on private yacht. Encrypted vengeance. I declined all interviews. Let them speculate. My lawyers, however, had plenty to say. The charges stuck theft, attempted cyber trafficking, conspiracy, and illegal export of proprietary software. My mother was sentenced to 4 years in a minimum security federal facility. Julian, with a plea deal, got 18 months and a $2.1 million restitution order. Neither showed remorse. Julian's last words to me in court were, "You always thought you were better than us." He said it like a curse. I wore it like armor. My mother didn't speak at all. She didn't look at me. Not during testimony, not during sentencing, not even when I read my statement aloud. "You didn't just steal from me. You tried to destroy the thing I built to survive the world you raised me in. I spent my life turning fear into function. You spent yours turning love into leverage. We're not the same." After that, she glanced up, just once, then looked away. The weeks that followed were eerily quiet. No more tracking, no more sleepless stakeouts, just normal life, or what passed for it. Maya went back to Berlin. Zaira declined payment for her final week of work, saying, "Watching your mom get arrested while wearing a caftan and trying to sell a data vault was payment enough." I tried calling Leo once. He didn't answer. I left a voicemail. "I know I shut you out. I wish I hadn't. But I had to become someone else to survive this. And now, I'm trying to find my way back. If there's a version of us that still exists, I'm open. If not, thank you for being part of the version that saved me." He didn't call back. 2 months later, I stood outside the house I bought with the portion of the sale I hadn't locked into legal battles or recovery costs. It wasn't flashy, no infinity pool, no designer staging, just a 2-story brick craftsman on a quiet street with a wraparound porch and enough sunlight for a garden. A real home. Mine. Inside, I unpacked a single box labeled Cassidy Childhood Artifacts. Inside, my first high school coding competition ribbon, a crumpled letter from MIT dated 2011, a photo of me, Julian, and Mom in front of our old apartment. I was 12, he was 7. Mom was smiling. I held that photo a long time. It hurt, still, but it no longer defined me. One afternoon, I went to visit my father's grave. He died of a heart attack when I was 19, right before I got my first full-time job. He never got to see the company, or the sale, or what his ex-wife and stepson had done, but I think he would have understood. I sat by the headstone, a coffee in one hand, and said aloud, "Hey, Dad, you'd be proud of the encryption model I built. Not so proud of the family situation, but I fixed it. Mostly. And I bought a house, a real one. I think you'd like the porch." The wind moved gently through the grass. I swear it sounded like forgiveness. I've shared all of this, not because I want pity or applause, but because I know betrayal often hides behind the people who taught us to spell trust in the first place. If you've been hurt by family, you're not broken, you're awake. And if you're rebuilding one line of code one day, one truth at a time, you're not alone. 6 months after the arrest, I started dreaming in color again. Not in panic sequences or fragments of memory like before, but actual vibrant dreams, sun-drenched fields, whispered laughter, clean slates. I hadn't realized how long I'd been living in grayscale. The world had sharpened around me, but something inside me had dulled. That's the truth they don't tell you about revenge. It burns so hot it leaves you numb. After the trial, after the sentencing, after the world called me the encryption heiress who took down her own blood, the noise faded. The headlines stopped, the notifications slowed. I was alone with the quiet. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. I didn't rebuild RedlineSec. I didn't want to. It had become a monument to everything I had to outgrow my obsession with protection. My belief that if I coded enough walls, no one could hurt me. Instead, I started something different. Smaller, slower, more intentional. Monroe theory. a consulting firm that taught ethical design and cybersecurity, not just how to encrypt systems, but how to build tech that prioritized human dignity. We partnered with schools, community clinics, nonprofits with broken IT budgets, and no defense against data exploitation. We didn't make millions, but we made sense. For the first time in my life, I built something that didn't need to prove my worth to the world, just my values to myself. Leo reached out around the 1-year mark. A simple message: I watched your TED Talk. You looked whole. I'm proud of you. That was it. No expectations. No ask for reconciliation. I stared at the message for 20 minutes before replying. Thank you. I wasn't whole before. I'm still not. But I'm honest now. And I miss your coffee. He sent a coffee emoji, nothing else. We met up 2 weeks later. No labels, no promises. Just two people sitting on a bench with enough history to hurt and enough future to wonder. Healing isn't linear. Sometimes it's just showing up for yourself when no one else does. As for Julian and my mother, I don't follow their progress. My legal team handles the restitution process. I don't need the updates. I've let go of the fantasy that one day they'll write call beg for forgiveness. They won't. And if they did, I'm not sure I'd answer. Forgiveness isn't always reconciliation. Sometimes it's just the choice to stop carrying their crimes as your identity. What I've learned: people will disappoint you. Even the ones you fed, housed, defended. Even the ones who whispered I love you while planning your ruin. But survival is not weakness. Survival is genius. Survival is turning the weapons they used against you into tools you pass down to others so they can build better. I share this not for sympathy, but for solidarity. Because some of you have mothers who called your boundaries betrayal. Some of you have brothers who saw your success as a threat, not a beacon. Some of you are waking up right now to the sound of silence after everything exploded and wondering what comes next. Here's what comes next. You breathe. You rebuild. You teach your nervous system that safety isn't in the people who broke you, it's in the life you now choose for yourself. You are not your betrayal. You are your rebuild. So if this story made you feel seen, say something in the comments. Even just a dot, a me too, a name, a city, a scream. Let it echo. Because we're not just survivors. We're architects. And we've got stories to build. Story 2. My sister pretended to bond with me just to secretly record my breakdown for her birthday party. So I gave her guests a show they'd never forget. I'm 18, and my sister Lily turns 21 this weekend, and our birthdays have always been a major source of contention in our family because mine falls exactly 3 days after hers. Which means that every year since we were kids, my parents have gone completely overboard for Lily's celebration because hers is more important now that she is older, and her birthday apparently deserves the big party that combines both of our celebrations. Even though I never have any say in the planning guest list or anything else important. This year was supposed to be different because Lily approached me 2 weeks ago and said she wanted to do something special to involve me in her 21st birthday celebrations. And she suggested we have sister bonding time where we talk about our childhood memories and our relationship. Which surprised me because Lily has never expressed an interest in spending time with me or acknowledging my existence. Unless she needs something from me or wants to use my stuff without my permission. She persuaded me to join her last Tuesday evening when our parents were at their book club meeting, and she took out her phone and began asking me questions about how I felt growing up in our family and whether I ever felt excluded or ignored, as if she was finally ready to admit that our parents had always treated us differently, and that perhaps she wanted to make things right between us. I ended up talking for about 2 hours about how lonely and anxious I felt my entire life. I've struggled with panic attacks since middle school because I always feel like I'm walking on eggshells around everyone in our family. And I've never felt like I could express my true thoughts or feelings because Lily always gets the attention and support while I'm dismissed or told I'm being dramatic. Whenever I try to speak up about anything that bothers me, Lily was very attentive and compassionate during our chat, asking follow-up questions and nodding at the appropriate times, and she even hugged me at the end, saying she had no idea I was feeling that way, and that she wanted to do better as my sister, giving me hope that we might be able to have a meaningful relationship for the first time in our lives. Then, yesterday, I was hunting for my charger in Lily's room because she took it and forgot to return it. I looked for her, but she was evidently off shopping with her friends, and I unintentionally knocked over some documents from her desk. And while I was gathering them up, I saw her laptop was still open with thumbnails of video clips that appeared to have been taken in our living room. So curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked on one of the files. It was a film of our whole conversation from last Tuesday, shot from an angle that revealed she had set up her phone to record everything while pretending it was just resting there casually, and I could tell she had cut the tapes down to the most emotional and vulnerable times, when I was talking about my anxiety panic attacks and feelings of worthlessness. She had also added text overlays, giving the video the appearance of a dramatic confession. I scrolled through the project folder and discovered at least 15 different clips that she had edited together, including parts where I was crying while discussing how I sometimes have panic attacks in my bedroom and have to bite my pillow to keep from making a noise because I don't want anyone to hear me cry. Another section in which I stated that when I'm feeling very stressed, I skip meals because my stomach becomes so tight that I can't eat anything without feeling nauseous. There was also a final video file labeled Lily's 21st birthday surprise that showed she was planning to play this compilation at her party tomorrow night in front of all her college friends and extended family members with a title card that said, "My Sister's Journey," as if it were an inspirational documentary. And I recognized that her sudden desire and bonding with me was a ruse to collect footage that would make her appear like a caring and supporting sister, while also revealing my most intimate troubles to everyone we knew. I was outraged, hurt, and felt thoroughly misled, but I also knew that approaching Lily directly would be ineffective because she would simply deny it, make excuses, or find a way to make me the bad guy, as she often does when I try to call her out on her conduct. Instead, I decided to do my own investigation and began meticulously searching her laptop to see what else I could find. And that's when I discovered a hidden folder buried deep in her photo library, including hundreds of photos and videos from parties and social events she'd attended over the previous 2 years. These weren't the carefully posed photos she posts on social media, where she appears perfect and responsible, but rather raw, unfiltered images of Lily drinking heavily, making out with random guys at parties, smoking what appeared to be marijuana in several photos, and even a few videos where she appeared to be taking pills that weren't prescription medication while laughing and acting completely reckless. There were also screenshots of text conversations in which Lily talked to her friends about lying to our parents about where she was going and who she was with, as well as several photos of her at parties on nights when she claimed to be studying at the library or sleeping over at a friend's house for school projects. The most damning evidence was a series of images from last month showing Lily at some type of warehouse party that was absolutely illegal and unsafe with people who were plainly far older than college students. And in several of the photographs, Lily was kissing and being very physical with a gentleman who appeared to be in his 30s, while her expression and body language clearly indicated that she was drunk or high. I spent hours going through everything and selecting about 50 of the most revealing photos that would completely destroy Lily's carefully crafted image for our parents and extended family, who all believe she's this perfect, responsible college student who never drinks or parties and devotes all of her time to her studies and part-time job. Lily's birthday party was held tonight, and it was the usual elaborate affair that our parents organize every year with our grandparents. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and about 20 of Lily's college friends gathered in our backyard under the string lights and decorations that our mother had spent weeks planning and putting up. I waited until everyone had come and settled down with their drinks and snacks, and then I volunteered to assist Lily in setting up the slideshow presentation she had prepared for the party, which I knew featured an edited video of my private confessions that she intended to surprise everyone with. When Lily went inside to retrieve the laptop, I followed her and offered to carry it outside for her while my hands were free. She handed it over without hesitation, because she had no idea I knew what she was going to do. Instead of connecting her laptop to the projector system that our father had set up on the back patio, I immediately replaced her presentation file with the party photo folder that I had created, and I made sure the slideshow was set to advance automatically every few seconds, so that once started, it would run through all 50 photographs without being readily stopped. I informed everyone that Lily had prepared a special presentation about her college experiences and personal progress, and I began the slideshow before Lily could protest or verify what was actually placed into the system. The first few images to display on the enormous projector screen were fairly mundane shots of Lily at what appeared to be typical college parties. However, within roughly 30s, the visuals changed to depict Lily drinking heavily. Then the photos of her making out with numerous guys began to circulate, followed by images of her smoking and taking pills. Lily instantly began screaming at me to turn it off and lunging at the projector. But our cousins and some of her college mates were closer to the equipment and appeared stunned by what they saw. So the presentation continued while Lily desperately tried to explain to our parents and grandparents that the photographs were not what they appeared to be. By the time someone managed to turn off the projector, everyone at the party had seen at least 40 of the 50 photos I had chosen, including the most damaging ones of Lily, with the older guy at the warehouse party, as well as several images in which she was clearly under the influence of something far more potent than alcohol. Our parents were completely ashamed and outraged, and our grandma began crying, saying she couldn't believe Lily would act that way in light of the family about her activities, while our grandfather simply shook his head, looking profoundly disappointed. Lily's college pals appeared divided into two groups: those who were laughing because they recognized the parties and knew it was regular college activity, and those who appeared uncomfortable and began making reasons to leave early since they could see how angry our family members were becoming. Lily was crying and yelling that I had invaded her privacy and stolen her personal images, and she kept trying to convince our parents that everyone at college parties liked this, and that the photographs were taken out of context. However, our mother was now in full crisis mode and demanded to know how long Lily had been lying about her whereabouts and actions. The party virtually crumbled after that, with the majority of the attendees leaving within an hour, while our parents battled with Lily about her behavior and sought explanations for specific photographs in the slideshow. I stayed outside cleaning up the decorations and empty plates while the family drama played out inside the house, and I could hear Lily's voice rising and becoming more emotional as she attempted to describe the photos to our parents, while my mother's voice kept interrupting with queries about specific shots, and my father's booming voice demanded to know how long Lily had been lying about her college activities. About an hour after the majority of the guests had left, my father walked outside and told me that I needed to come inside right away to explain how I obtained Lily's private images and what I thought I was accomplishing by humiliating her in front of our entire extended family. And his tone was already hostile and accusatory, indicating that Lily had successfully convinced them that I was the true criminal in this circumstance. When I walked in, I discovered Lily sitting at the kitchen table with red eyes and tissues all around her, while my mother stood behind her, protective hands on her shoulders. And the entire incident was obviously staged to make Lily appear like the victim and me look like the aggressor, which was exactly what I expected. After the first shock of the photographs subsided, Lily began crying even harder when she saw me and told our parents that she couldn't believe I would invade her privacy and try to harm her image simply because I was jealous of her birthday celebration. And she claimed that she had never done anything to deserve such cruel treatment from her own sister, which made me giggle because she appeared to have entirely forgotten about the recording and video project I discovered on her laptop. My parents spent the next 2 hours questioning me about how I had gotten into Lily's computer and whether I had been spying on her for weeks or months. And they kept demanding to know what my true motivation was for wanting to hurt Lily so badly, ignoring my attempts to explain the video project she had been working on and the fact that she had filmed our private talk without my knowledge. Every time I mentioned Lily's recording plan, my parents dismissed it as inconsequential or said that I was fabricating stories to justify my actions, and Lily would only shake her head sadly, claiming that she had no idea what I was talking about and that I must have misinterpreted what I saw on her laptop. By the end of our conversation that night, it was evident that my parents had entirely believed Lily's account of events and saw me as the aggressor who had purposefully destroyed her birthday celebration out of spite and jealousy. And I understood there was no use in defending myself because they'd already decided who was telling the truth. I did it to expose my sister. Edit. Many people have asked for more information about the issue and questioned if my reaction was acceptable, so I'd like to share some additional context that may help explain why I felt I had no choice but to expose Lily the way I did. First, I want to clarify that Lily did not simply capture me being vulnerable during a casual conversation. Rather, she staged what she described as a bonding session specifically to capture footage of me discussing my mental health struggles and personal problems. And she did so with the clear aim of turning the tape into a presentation that would be seen to dozens of people without my knowledge or agreement. Lily knew I had social anxiety and panic episodes. She also understood that having my private emotional breakdowns exposed to her extended family and college friends would be very heartbreaking for me, but she intended to do it anyhow, believing that it would make her appear as a compassionate and intelligent sister, assisting me in working through my problems. Second, I'd like to address the opinions about the images I discovered and if I was wrong to use them as revenge. And I recognize that some people believe I should have approached Lily directly or informed our parents about her recording plans rather than publicly exposing her party conduct. The trouble is that Lily has always been our family's golden kid, and whenever I've tried to inform our parents about something she's done to hurt or mistreat me, they always take her side and dismiss my concerns as jealousy or attention-seeking beta behavior, just as they did at the end of my original post. Last year, Lily took my car without asking and slammed it into a mailbox while drunk. When I told our parents what had happened, they criticized me for not hiding my keys better and advised me to be more compassionate because Lily was dealing with a hard situation with her college applications. Lily stole money from my savings account, which I had earned from a part-time job 2 years ago, to buy concert tickets for her and her pals. When I uncovered the missing money and confronted her about it, our parents made me apologize to Lily for accusing her of theft and told me that I should be delighted to assist my sister. Have fun! Lily has always been able to persuade our parents that she is innocent and responsible while portraying me as the disruptive child who creates drama and fabricates stories for attention. So I knew that notifying them about her recording scheme would only result in her denying everything and our parents trusting her version of events rather than mine. The photos I discovered were not just random party photos, but evidence that Lily has been lying to our parents about her college activities while accepting their financial support and portraying herself as a model student deserving special treatment and larger birthday celebrations because she is supposedly more mature and responsible than me. Our parents pay for Lily's tuition, housing, food, and entertainment because they believe she is focused on her academics and making wise decisions, whereas I am expected to work part-time and cover my own bills because they believe I need to learn responsibility and independence. Lily receives a monthly allowance of $600 for scholastic expenditures, whereas I receive $50 for my birthday and Christmas combined. And our parents excuse this disparity by claiming that Lily has proven she can be trusted with money, whereas I have not shown the same maturity. The party images revealed that Lily has been using our parents' money to sustain a lifestyle that involves illegal substances, dangerous circumstances with older men, and reckless behavior that could jeopardize her safety and academic success. While she continues to accept praise and special treatment for being the responsible daughter, I felt that exposing Lily's true behavior was the only way to level the playing field and show our parents that their perfect daughter isn't the person they believe she is, and that they should reconsider how they treat both of their children in the future. I'd also like to address the timing issue, as numerous people have stated that Lily's 21st birthday party was not an acceptable occasion for this type of confrontation. And while I appreciate your point of view, I believe it is crucial to remember that Lily intended to use her birthday party as a platform to publicly humiliate me with taped film of my anxiety confessions. The slideshow I built followed the same format and presentation style that Lily had planned for my admissions, and I targeted the same demographic that she intended to show my tape to. So in many respects, I was simply giving her a taste of her own medicine using her own methods. I understand that two wrongs do not make a right, and I don't pretend that what I did was ethically ideal. But I also believe it's crucial to recognize that Lily started this fight by invading my privacy and intending to exploit my mental health issues for social entertainment. And rather than an unjustified attack, I responded directly to her premeditated betrayal. Update 1 week later. The fallout from Lily's birthday party has been absolutely insane, and my parents have officially lost their minds and decided that I am the villain in this entire situation. Despite the fact that Lily was the one who started the whole thing by secretly recording my private conversations and planning to humiliate me in front of our entire extended family. The morning after the party, I awoke to my mother shouting at me from below, demanding that I come down right once to explain myself and apologize for what I had done to Lily in our family's image. When I came to the kitchen, both of my parents were sitting there with Lily, who was still wearing her pajamas and had red eyes from sobbing all night. My father began the talk by informing me that my behavior at the party was utterly inappropriate and that I had crossed a boundary that could not be reversed. And he stated Lily had told them that the photographs I displayed were taken out of context and did not reflect her true personality or ideals. Lily apparently spent hours after the party convincing our parents that the images of her drinking and partying were just typical college experiences that everyone goes through, and that the photos of her with older men and taking pills were either photoshopped or showed her in situations where she was being pressured by others to do things she didn't want to do. She also informed our parents that I was jealous of her birthday party and purposefully wrecked it out of spite, and she stated that she had no idea why I would want to hurt her so badly since she had been attempting to be a better sister to me by organizing the bonding talk we had the previous week. When I tried to explain the recording and video project I discovered on her laptop, Lily quickly denied everything and claimed I was fabricating lies to defend my actions, and she claimed that any video files I saw were simply random phone recordings that had been saved to her computer by accident. My parents trusted Lily's account of events and refused to look at the evidence I tried to present. And my mother stated that even if Lily had recorded our talk, it would not excuse the way I publicly insulted her and harmed our family's reputation in front of our relatives and her college friends. The talk swiftly turned into my parents lecturing me about family loyalty and respect, and they claimed that my acts demonstrated that I could no longer be allowed to reside in their home since I was willing to damage my own sister and embarrass the entire family in order to gain attention. My father announced that they would give me 1 week to locate another somewhere to live, and that after next Friday, I would no longer be welcome in their home. And he stated that this decision was definitive and non-negotiable, regardless of whatever explanations or apologies I may provide. Lily sat there the entire time, looking sorrowful and victimized, occasionally wiping her eyes with tissues and nodding in agreement as our parents discussed how upset and misled she felt, and she never admitted that she had done anything wrong. When I tried to point out that Lily had violated my privacy first and that her behavior in the photos was genuinely concerning and dangerous, my mother cut me off, saying that what Lily did in her spare time was none of my concern, and that sharing those images without her permission was a crime with serious legal ramifications. My father also stated that Lily's college activities were between her and her parents, and that my responsibility as her sister was to support her and safeguard her privacy, not to spy on her or use her personal images as weapons against her. They also claimed that the party images showed nothing illegal or hazardous, just typical college socializing that I was too young to comprehend. They also stated that my behavior was motivated by jealousy, as I do not have the same social chances as Lily at college. The most aggravating aspect of this conversation was that my parents continued to behave as if Lily's recording and video editing endeavor was perfectly harmless or irrelevant to the matter, and they failed to admit that her intention to display my anxiety confessions at her birthday celebration was a significant breach of my trust and privacy. After nearly 2 hours of this circular argument, my parents informed me that I had till next Friday to collect my basic possessions and find a place to stay. They also informed me that they would not be giving financial assistance for my housing or living expenses, since they believed I was a legal adult who had chosen to damage Lily over maintaining family bonds. So I had to confront the repercussions of my own conduct. Lily finally came up near the conclusion of the session, saying she was disappointed in me and had hoped we could work things out as sisters, but she understood why our parents didn't trust me to be in the house anymore, and she expressed her hope that I would learn from this experience and make better choices in the future. The entire situation felt weird, since Lily was acting as if she was the innocent victim. Yet our parents treated me as if I had committed some awful crime by exposing behavior that Lily should be ashamed of. Anyway, since that conversation, the atmosphere in the house has been absolutely toxic, with my parents barely speaking to me, except to remind me of the moving out deadline, and Lily alternating between completely ignoring me and making passive-aggressive comments about how hurt she is by my betrayal. Lily brought up the recording issue for the first time since the party yesterday, but merely to say that she was thinking about filing a police report against me for unauthorized access to her laptop, and she stated that what I did may be considered theft or cybercrime, depending on how the police read the scenario. I pointed out that her recording plan would have harmed my reputation and mental health in similar ways, but she just rolled her eyes and said it wasn't the same because she never showed the video to anyone, whereas I had clearly shared her private photos with our entire extended family. I've spent the majority of my time in my room packing some of my possessions and figuring out where I'm going to reside, and the situation feels absolutely overwhelming because I have fewer than 6 days to find lodging and do not have enough cash to cover a security deposit and first month's rent in most flats. I'm looking for youth hostels and extended stay motels that would be cheap with my part-time employment income. The saddest part is that I still believe I was justified in revealing Lily's party conduct because she was intending to do something as humiliating to me, and she has been lying to our parents while collecting financial support for things that they would strongly oppose. But everyone in my family believes I'm fully at fault that Lily's recording was either innocent or inconsequential, and that my revenge was awful and criminal. And I'm starting to wonder if I truly am that sure lodge in this situation, or if my family is just absolutely dysfunctional. Update 2 months later. It's been 2 months since my parents kicked me out, and things have gotten much more confusing and frustrating than I could have predicted. When I first wrote about Lily's birthday party fiasco after my parents gave me the ultimatum to move out, I spent the entire week calling our extended family members to see if they would let me stay with them temporarily while I worked out my next moves. And the comments I received were simply terrible, revealing how fully Lily and my parents had controlled the story surrounding what happened. I began with my grandma on my mother's side, who has always been kind to me during family events, and whom I assumed would be sympathetic to my position. However, when I called her and stated that my parents had kicked me out and I needed a place to stay, she instantly began questioning why I had been so nasty to Lily at her birthday party. My grandmother informed me that my mother had called her the day after the party to explain that I had been acting out and causing problems for months, and that the slideshow incident was simply the last straw in a pattern of jealous and destructive behavior that had been escalating throughout my senior year of high school. According to my grandmother, my mother explained that I had been stealing Lily's belongings, spreading rumors about her at school, and fabricating stories about her college activities, because I was angry that she was more successful and popular than me, and that the party photos I had shown were either fake or obtained illegally through Lily's social media accounts. When I tried to tell my grandma the truth about Lily recording my anxious admissions and planned to show them at her party, she cut me off and claimed that my mother had warned her that I would most likely lie to rationalize my behavior and get pity from family members. My grandmother stated that while she loved me, she could not give home to someone who was ready to harm their own sister so severely, and she advised me to focus on apologizing to Lily and my parents and attempting to recover the trust I had broken, rather than looking for people to excuse my wrong decisions. I had similar discussions with other extended family members. After a week of these heartbreaking meetings with family members who were all persuaded that I was the lone villain in the issue, I understood that I was not going to obtain any help from our extended family, and that I needed to look for other possibilities for accommodation and financial assistance. My friend Ava's parents agreed to let me remain in their guest room for a while, but they made it plain that this was only a temporary solution, and that I would have to find more permanent housing within a month or two. They also stated that I would be required to contribute to household expenses and assist with housework in order to make a living. Ava's family has been extremely nice and supportive, but I can tell that having an extra person in their home is difficult for them, especially because their guest room serves as both a home office and storage space. So I'm basically living in a room full of boxes and computer equipment. I've been working additional hours at my part-time job to save money for rent and deposits, but the salary is only minimum wage, so saving for an apartment has been extremely slow and unpleasant. The most stressful aspect of this entire issue has been dealing with college applications and acceptance letters, as I applied to numerous colleges before the party incident and expected to hear back from them around this time. However, all of my communication was still being sent to my parents' residence 2 weeks ago. I received a text message from my neighbor buddy Richard informing me that he had seen a mail truck deliver a large envelope addressed to me at my parents' house, which appeared to be a college acceptance letter based on the university insignia on the return address. I quickly went over to my parents' house in Ava's car and rang the doorbell, but no one responded, despite the fact that I could see my mother's car in the driveway and hear the television playing inside. So I knocked loudly and announced that I only needed to pick up my mail and wouldn't create any difficulties. After about 10 minutes of knocking and calling, I attempted to contact my mother's phone, but it went directly to voicemail. When I tried to call my father's phone, the same thing happened, so I understood they were actively avoiding me and not answering the door or their phones. I remained outside for another hour, hoping that one of them would eventually come out or at least acknowledge my presence. But the house remained utterly silent and no one answered to my repeated banging and phone calls. The next day, I attempted returning at a later time when I thought my father would be home from work. But the same thing happened, and I began to fear that my parents were delaying my college acceptance letters on purpose to damage my educational possibilities. I called the admissions office of the university I believed had sent the letter, and they confirmed that my acceptance packet had been mailed to the address I had supplied on my application. However, they stated that they couldn't send it to another location without formal evidence proving that I had moved. The admissions counselor I spoke with suggested that I request a change of address through the postal service, but this would take several weeks to process, and I was concerned that other time-sensitive documents may be lost or delayed in the interim. I also attempted to contact my parents by email and text message, saying that I needed access to my mail for college applications, and ask them to either forward the letters to Ava's residence or notify me when I might stop by to pick them up. However, they never responded to any of my messages. The entire thing feels weird because my parents are practically holding my future hostage over what happened at Lily's party, and they are willing to jeopardize my academic prospects in order to demonstrate family loyalty and the repercussions of my decisions. I've been trying to concentrate on work and saving money, but it's extremely difficult to do so when I know that there are probably multiple college acceptance letters sitting in my parents' house that I can't get to, and that each day that passes increases the likelihood that I'll miss important deadlines for accepting admission or applying for financial aid. Ava's parents have been supportive and have offered to assist me in determining legal alternatives for accessing my mail, but I'm concerned that involving attorneys or authorities may exacerbate the situation and provide my parents with additional ammunition to use against me with our wider family. Update 3: several weeks later, the situation with my parents withholding my college mail reached a breaking point last week, and I had to take dramatic measures to finally receive my acceptance letters and financial aid documentation. But I think it was worthwhile because I now have the documents I need to start college in the fall. After weeks of my parents refusing to answer the door or respond to my phone calls and messages about my mail, I realized they were never going to cooperate with me voluntarily, and I needed to figure out how to force them to acknowledge my presence and deal with the college documents that were piling up at their house. I knew my parents went to church every Sunday morning at the same congregation they'd been attending for almost 15 years, and they were extremely concerned about keeping their status as good Christian parents and their religious community. So, I concluded that confronting them publicly at church could be the only way to persuade them to consider my case seriously. Last Sunday, I awoke early and borrowed Ava's car to drive to my parents' church, arriving about 20 minutes before the service began, so that I could meet them in the parking lot and have witnesses present for our conversation. When my parents arrived into the church parking lot and got out of their car, I approached them and said loudly enough for other parishioners to hear that I needed to speak with them about my college acceptance letters and financial aid documents that had been delivered to their home. My mother's face became absolutely white when she saw me, and my father began heading toward the church entrance, telling me that this was not the time or place for family issues, but I followed them and continued to complain loudly about how they had refused to let me access my mail for weeks. Other church members began to stare and murmur as my parents attempted to ignore me and move quicker toward the building, so I raised my voice even higher and stated that I was 18 years old and legally authorized to receive mail, and that my parents were undermining my college applications by refusing to allow me to pick up acceptance letters and financial aid paperwork. By this point, several individuals had stopped to observe what was going on. My father eventually stopped walking and turned around to tell me that I was causing a commotion and embarrassing our family in front of our church congregation. But I responded loudly that they had already embarrassed our family by pushing out their 18-year-old daughter and then refusing to allow her access to crucial college credentials. Pastor Bennett contacted us at that point and inquired if we had a family emergency that he might assist us with. My mother rapidly tried to explain that I was their daughter who had been experiencing behavioral issues and was now attempting to manipulate them by causing a scene at church. I immediately contradicted my mother and informed Pastor Bennett that my parents had kicked me out of their home 2 months prior and were now withholding my college acceptance letters and financial aid documents, which could prevent me from starting college in the fall if I missed important deadlines for responding to admissions offers. Pastor Bennett became concerned and asked my parents if this was true, and my father reluctantly admitted that there had been some family disagreement and that I was no longer living at home, but he claimed that I was exaggerating the matter and attempting to make them seem terrible in front of the church congregation. I informed Pastor Bennett that I had been trying for weeks to set up a time to pick up my mail, but my parents had refused to answer the door or return my phone calls, and I expressed concern that they might be purposely sabotaging my educational opportunities as retribution for something that happened months ago. At this point, quite a few people had gathered to listen to our chat, and I could tell my parents were very uncomfortable with the public attention and the idea that other church members were learning about our family troubles. Pastor Bennett suggested that we move our talk inside his office where we could have more privacy, but I stated I didn't need privacy and simply wanted my parents to let me use my email so I could answer my college applications. My mother finally stepped out, stating that they had been getting mail intended for me and were happy to forward it to the address where I was now staying. But I informed her that wasn't good enough, because some of the documents would need original signatures or immediate responses that couldn't be delayed by mail. Pastor Bennett asked my parents if they would let me come to their house at a set time to pick up my mail in person, and my father said they would think about it, but they needed to discuss the terms and circumstances privately as a family first. My parents were clearly frustrated with the public aspect of this debate and wanted to finish it as soon as possible, so I decided to increase the pressure by adding that I had proof of the family disagreement that had resulted in my expulsion, and that I would be pleased to share that information with Pastor Bennett if my parents continued to interfere with my college applications. When I said this, my father's face turned bright crimson, and he inquired what I meant by documentation. So I told him that I still had copies of the images and videos that had sparked our original argument, as well as screenshots of text conversations and emails demonstrating how our family had handled the problem. I stated that I was confident that Pastor Bennett and the church community would be extremely interested in learning about the types of parental decisions and family values that had resulted in an 18-year-old girl being homeless and unable to access her college mail. And I mentioned that this would be an excellent topic for a future sermon on Christian family relationships. My mother immediately worried and told Pastor Bennett that I was threatening to share lies and confidential family information in order to harm their reputation. But I calmly responded that I wasn't threatening anyone and was merely pointing out that the reality about our family status would be useful information for their spiritual advisor and church group. Pastor Bennett appeared to be unhappy with the course of the talk, and he offered that we move to his office to discuss the problem more quietly. But my father quickly stated it wasn't required, and that they'd make arrangements for me to pick up my mail this week. I informed my parents that I required specific information regarding when and how I might access my mail, and that I would not leave the church parking lot until we had made firm plans that included a specific date and time for me to arrive at their house. After several more minutes of deliberation in front of the swelling crowd of curious churchgoers, my parents finally agreed that I could come to their house on Tuesday evening at 6 haru to pick up all mail that had been delivered in my name, and they claimed they'd have everything sorted and ready for me to pick up right away. Pastor Bennett expressed his hope that our family could overcome these challenges through prayer and understanding, and he offered to mediate any future talks if we needed help speaking more effectively. However, my parents swiftly declined his offer, stating that they were confident in their ability to handle the problem privately. My parents went to church for the service, but I could see they were quite sad and humiliated about what had transpired, and I felt delighted that I had finally compelled them to take my academic predicament seriously and agree to give me access to my emails. Final update. Tuesday evening arrived, and I drove to my parents' house at exactly 6 p.m. As promised, I was relieved to see that both of their cars were in the driveway and that the lights were turned on inside the house, indicating that they couldn't pretend they weren't home, as they had been doing for weeks. When I knocked, my mother answered the door and handed me a large manila envelope containing all of the college-related mail that had been delivered to their address in the previous 2 months, including acceptance letters from 3 different universities, financial aid award letters, housing applications, and several other important documents with impending deadlines. I was ecstatic to finally have access to my college email. My acceptance letter from my first-choice university had arrived over a month ago, and the deadline for accepting their admission offer and submitting my enrollment deposit was only 5 days away, which meant I had almost missed out on the opportunity to attend the school I had been dreaming about for years. The financial aid documents were even more time-sensitive, as several of the scholarship applications required responses within specific timeframes, and some of the deadlines had already passed, while my parents refused to provide me with the paperwork I needed to complete the application processes. While I was going through the mail, I asked my mother if I could get some of my personal stuff that I'd left behind when I moved out. My mother's demeanor became furious, and she told me that I couldn't remove anything from the house, because technically, all of my possessions belonged to my parents, as they had purchased everything, and I was still a juvenile at the time. I explained that I was 18 years old, and legally an adult, and that many of the goods I wanted to take were gifts given to me expressly for my birthday or Christmas, or that I had purchased with money from my part-time work. But my mother insisted that it didn't matter, because I had been living in their house under their rules when I got the goods. She also stated that because I chose to leave the family and embarrass them in public at church, I had forfeited my right to benefit from their generosity and financial support, including the right to keep any clothes, electronics, or other items they had provided for me while I was growing up. I tried to reason with my mother, explaining that I needed my computer for college study and that my clothes were necessities that any sensible parent would let their child have when moving out. But Mom insisted that I had made the decision to prioritize assaulting Lily over maintaining family bonds, and that I had to deal with the consequences on my own. My father appeared in the doorway at that point and supported my mother's position, claiming that I had demonstrated that I could not be trusted to respect family property or privacy, and that allowing me to take valuable items from their home would reward my bad behavior while sending the wrong message about accountability. The conversation lasted about 30 minutes, with my parents becoming increasingly stubborn and unreasonable in their refusal to allow me to take even basic necessities like clothes and toiletries, while I grew increasingly frustrated with their petty and vindictive attitude toward their own daughter. At that point, I recognized that my parents were never going to be rational in this situation, and that they were determined to make my college transition as difficult as possible as a punishment for exposing Lily's party behavior and refusing to accept their version of events. I was completely fatigued from months of dealing with their deception and emotional abuse, and I was sick of their incessant attempts to rewrite history and depict Lily as the perfect daughter while treating me like a criminal for defending myself against her invasion of my privacy. So I looked straight at my mother and told her she could go watch herself if she thought I was going to beg for basic requirements from parents who were more concerned with protecting their golden child's reputation than supporting their other daughter's education and future. I told them they could take all of my old possessions and put them up their asses if they wanted to be that petty and vindictive about material objects. since I no longer needed anything from them and was perfectly capable of constructing a successful life without their help or approval. My father instantly yelled at me for insulting my mother and using unacceptable words in their home, but I broke him off and informed him that they had lost the right to teach me about respect. When they decided to kick me out and damage my college applications because Lily had started the problem by recording me without permission, I stated that I was done pretending that we were a regular family or that they were reasonable parents, and that after leaving their house that night, I never wanted to see or communicate with any of them again, especially Lily, who had duped them into believing her falsehoods and victimization narrative. I explained that they had chosen to prioritize Lily's comfort and reputation over my safety and well-being, and that I was simply choosing to prioritize my education and future over maintaining relationships with people who had demonstrated that I couldn't rely on them to support me when I needed it the most. Before my parents could respond, I turned around and walked back to Ava's car, taking my envelope of college mail with me and leaving everything else behind without looking back. Realized that holding on to material possessions from my childhood was no longer worth exposing myself to their emotional manipulation and abuse. I'm currently concentrating on finishing my college applications and preparing for my freshman year. And while the move to independence has been difficult and at times overwhelming, I'm relieved that I no longer have to deal with the continual stress and drama of attempting to maintain connections with individuals who obviously do not regard or respect me. I start college in 6 weeks, and I'm excited to start this new chapter of my life surrounded by people who know nothing about my family drama and will judge me based on my own actions and character, rather than comparing me to Lily or holding me accountable for conflicts that I didn't cause. I understand that some people may believe I was overly harsh with my parents during our final argument, but after months of being treated like a criminal for defending myself against Lily's invasion of my privacy, I felt compelled to make it known that I would no longer tolerate their deception and emotional abuse.